If you're like me, and you got no life and there's nowhere to go, then tune in to the Animation Truman Show. You'll be glad you did.
Live. Well, I just ordered a drain auger. We have a little bit of an issue with the potty upstairs. And so I decided to go heavy duty, get a 25-foot auger that will be something that may be handy for years to come. Okay, so a couple quick notes before we dive in here. Just a little comment here about Discord. It's one of those things where the very thing you were kind of maybe a little afraid of turns out so far to be exactly what happened, which is I installed the MEE6 bot on my channel because of all the wonderful benefits that it provides. It's supposed to be just so amazing, all the things it does. And what happens? Well, it starts posting these completely stupid congratulations, like totally falsified. It's like we're going to turn this into the ultimate fake endorphin spike hit because, oh my gosh, I just advanced to level 2, whatever that's supposed to mean. Well, we talked about this a little bit the other day. And anyway, the point of the story is, hey, good morning, Tom. The point of the story is I go into the MEE6 settings. I literally revoke every single conceivable privilege that it has on my Discord. And what's the result? Absolutely nothing. In fact, I can go into the settings now and confirm that all of its privileges, administrative and otherwise, and there's a lot of them, are all unticked. It has no privileges. Yet the one thing that to me is not only useless but downright stupid and insulting is the idea of a bot. I post something somewhere. Can you imagine every time you post something on Facebook, it's immediately, like right now, followed with another message that says, hey, congratulations, you're a level 4 Facebook user. Right on, Dave, man, you're connected. Right on, baby. All right. Can you imagine? Like, to me, you can't get any, that's what I call ASAP. You've heard the term. ASAP, right? What does ASAP mean? Well, to me it means as stupid as possible. Let's make this function as stupidly as possible. And so far, by the way, not looking for advice on how to fix it. Don't care. I literally couldn't care less. Little rant here just to let you know that I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I figured would happen. I do one bot that's highly recommended by several people, and there's really only one thing that I would like never in a trillion years want it to do. And what's the first thing it does? Congratulations! Oh man, you're up to level 7, man. Oh, you're great. You're in the club now. It's like, oh my God, it represents everything that's wrong with our social networking driven culture. Everything that's wrong with it is represented by that behavior. So anyway, enough of the rant. This is what we're going to actually look at this morning, which is pretty cool. I figured out a way in both Krita and Tahoma, if you're one of these people that really wants to you want to move quickly and go straight from pencil test to ink and paint in a hurry, where you don't lose the flow between the sketchy character of your pencil test and your ink lines, and you want a way to be able to do that in real time. Traditionally, if you're coming from the Disney school, let's say, circa 1965 to 75, what you're going to do is you're going to draw your character. So let's just draw a character who's kind of along the same lines as, I guess, probably Roger from, this doesn't really look like Roger, but it's kind of along the same lines, okay? So let's just draw this type of a character. Okay, so what you would do is you would generally have a thicker pencil than this. I mean, I'm set to 4 pixels, but let's just say. and then we'll just stop there. So basically, the cleanup process that Disney adopted in the 60s by adapting a Xerox machine pretty much amounted to this. And when you scan line art or use do a cleanup process, let's say in OpenTunes, this is pretty much what you're doing. So you're going to clamp the darker lines to make them even firmer, and you're going to actually clamp out the alpha, and then it's up to you to find the sweet spot so that you can turn your loose pencil lines into ink lines. And frankly, it suggests a lot more care in the drawing process too. In other words, in the real world, what you'd do is you'd be drawing. Actually, what you'd really do in a program like Krita is you'd probably do this. You'd probably draw your character. Let's just kind of get it blocked in a little bit better. And then what you'd actually do is what I call the turn down method. So I basically turn down the alpha of the pencil lines and then just go over them again. So again, this is for the person who really, for whatever reason, wants to sort of keep everything on the one hand stylistically loose, and on the other hand contained in a single layer if you can. Okay, so this is what you do, and then you do the cleanup step. Well, here's an idea to consider, and I'll show you how to do it in both Krita and in Tahoma, which OpenTunes Tahoma, same thing. And that is, in Krita, give yourself a solid red color. You could use blue or any other color, actually. I like red for sketching. Okay, and then hit the X key so that it toggles between foreground and background colors. And I hate to say this, but here I am live streaming. Let me see something here. And it looks like, oh, it does work. Okay. Thought things were going to not work. They were working fine on the laptop. Okay. So I've got my pencil. And so the way I would do it here would be I would draw Roger very loosely and sketchily, like so. Okay, so he's kind of got a big nose, I guess. This is not Roger. This is just a character kind of drawn in that sort of, I guess, 60s to 70s Disney style. But anyway, all you do is just hit the X key when you're ready and toggle between your foreground and your background colors, like so. Okay? Now you obviously have to massage this process to taste. And I'm moving really fast here for demonstration purposes. So, but basically in the real world, what I would be doing is I would be hitting the X key, and when I'm kind of sketching here, and I hit the X key and then just nail the line, right? Sketch, 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 boom, nail the line. Sketch, 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 sketch. Oh, nail the line. That type of an idea. And then instead of doing the obviously, you're going to get better results if you do what I did before, which is tone it down and then do your ink lines. But you can do this. This can work. Okay, so the filter to use, though, is actually the colors, color to alpha. And then what you do is, I've noticed that it typically doesn't work right out of the gate. I guess the reason here is because it's actually pointing to white, not red. Okay, so anyway, when you go to red, it turns all of your red lines to alpha. Now you could have, if you look really close, you can see it. You guys probably can't see it. But if you look closely, there's residue of those lines still there. So then what you can do, Control M, is go ahead and do the cleanup step after that, which is just to take everything that's got a really low alpha and actually just clamp it down to 0. And if you do that, we can kind of test this here by making this a closed shape. But what should happen if we do a fill operation, let's do a fill operation in multiply mode. Okay, and you can see that by doing that second step of clamping the alpha, it really did a pretty good job of cleaning it up so that we're now in a position to be able to go ahead and just keep our ink and paint all together in a single layer. So if you want to work that way, just toggling with your brush between the foreground and background color can be a good way to do that. So you probably want to have a light touch here, you know, sort of, because the idea is to sort of find the stroke and then you hit X and get it right away. Okay, And if you're going to be more sketchy about it, you can do that. I mean, either way, it doesn't matter. You're going to find out. You're going to find your own way and your own style. But anyway, so that's that. Well, what if you want to do the same thing in Tahoma? Well, my recommendation would be this way. Just create a, use the 2 and the 3 keys. So I'm using the 2 key, so I got my brush, and I hit the 2 key, and I do my little sketchy poo. Okay. So just a character. We'll just call it a head. And then I hit the 3 key, and immediately I'm switching to another palette entry, which I can then draw. Okay. Now this is a little dicier proposition to a degree because of the proclivity of Tahoma to not do a good job of drawing lines over lines that are already there. And what we actually have is we have red lines that we're going over with black lines. If your ink color is a standard Tahoma brush or OpenToonz brush, but your sketch color is a My Paint brush, this basically works pretty well. So then the question becomes, how do you clean it up? And that's easy in Tahoma. You just hit your eraser, select the red color, but then click this little box that says selective. And what it'll do is it'll erase everything except what you want to keep. Well, specifically, it'll erase only the color that's currently selected in the palette. So anyway, if you like keeping your workspace concise, not the worst ideas in the world to explore. So that's that. Let me see if there's anything interesting in the chat, and then we're going to get to work here in Krita, because we're doing basically ink and paint. Sounds like Zuko's a little active today. Aren't you, Zuko? You probably just wanted me to talk to you, you silly goose. Discord was created in gamers in mind, so that's the atmosphere. Don't care. Don't care. The gamification of everything is the virtual space you enter on the internet. Yep. Used to do all that in Photoshop back in the day. In a way, using a non-photo blue pencil, just using red and black and cinnamon. Exactly. That's all you're doing. You could tick the pencil mode on, so no. Well, that's true. I mean, that is true. Tom's bringing up a good point. If you want to tighten up this process, what you could do is for this color, turn on pencil mode, and probably, truthfully, if you're just using like a 2 pixel wide pencil, which I am, for nice sharp ink lines that are consistent in width, then you probably could even turn pressure off. So Tom makes a very good point. The problem of not necessarily getting great coverage with your lines is totally solved that way. So here's a circle, and then I hit the 3 key, and this will cover completely. I will guarantee you. So if I switch back to 2 and hit the selective eraser, and the reason it covers perfectly is because we've actually turned off anti-aliasing by putting it in pencil mode, and I've also turned off pressure, so there's no variation. So it's like using an ink pen. Okay. And then the only caveat with that would be that probably when you go to render, or ultimately with your cartoon, you probably want to go into your level settings and add some anti-aliasing. When I do that, when I need to, I usually set it to 100. And then when you render, you can see what it does. It makes the lines look perfect. I mean, there's the lack of anti-aliasing is definitely not a problem at all. So there you go. Okay? So, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right, back to work. Okay, so I did get... Amar makes a very good point, by the way. That is actually a really, really good point that's easy to overlook. Is when you have non-anti-alias lines. Now, if these lines were only 1 pixel thick, the following would not hold true with most software, actually. So in other words, you can see the stair-stepping. If this line was only a pixel wide, then you wouldn't have this slight overlap here between, right here, this diagonal overlap. You wouldn't have that. You'd have a 1 pixel wide line, and then it would simply jump up to another pixel wide line, and so the white would come right to that corner. If you have that scenario, generally most software does not see that as a fillable shape, and so you're asking for trouble. So if you're going to use this technique, definitely, with the main advantage I gained here by turning pressure off was that I can't even get a 1 pixel line. It's just going to give me a 2 pixel line no matter what. So that ensures that every, as long as I come to the, if I do, okay, I just did a stupid. Obviously, if I do this and don't quite close it, then we're going to have a problem. But if you basically are getting your lines reasonably closed, then you're a lot less likely to have leak problems. And as you can see, according to the fill checker, everything's fillable here. So what do we have here? We have, it looks like an apple with a worm jumping out of it or something. Okay? So yeah, so the basic rule being, if you're going for the anti-aliased, old school anime style ink work, have it be at least 2 pixels wide. Generally, I find 2 pixels is actually about what you want. So, anyway, back to work. Okay, so I got a little bit of ink work done last night, and it's coming along. So, and watch when Monkey, right up here, when he hands him the coin. Look at that. He actually falls to his knees, so it's got a nice little... I think this really accomplished what I was out to accomplish here. It gives a nice attitude to the shot and helps set the stage a little better. A little bit of empathy here, people, right? For the more downtrodden characters in the cast, of which, of course, the blind beggar is one. So what still has to be done? As some of you may know, I stole this idea from... when Monkey quickly disappears, he leaves behind a bit of fur that falls to the ground. I did, in fact, steal that from Witch Hazel from the Warner Brothers cartoons. Witch Hazel jumps up in the air, clicks her heels together, cackles gleefully, and then simply disappears off the screen, and her hairpins spin in the air. Now, his fur doesn't spin, but her hairpins spin in the air for a half second and then fall to the ground. So... that was just a way that the guys like Ken Harris, back in the 40s, 50s, whatever, figured out was a very entertaining and cheap way to have Witch Hazel exit the scene, because all they had to do is just quit drawing her. So, hello, Maria. Happy Friday. Anne Bronte's birthday on Monday. Yeah, like I should know who Anne Bronte is, and I actually have no idea. Oh, and Amar just asked. Good. Some comic book artists and animators use other tools. Using other tools, use no anti-aliasing as well. And like you said, afterwards when using rasters, that is. Yeah, and if you do the alpha clamping, like I showed here in Krita, and you kind of go in that same direction, you may wind up, like, in other words, if you clamp your ink lines too stringently, then they will become anti-alias. Because what you're doing is you're essentially adding contrast to the border, like this border right here. If you look really close at the lines, you can see they're not actually black. They're black-ish, and then as you go out, they become increasingly transparent. So when you clamp this, what you're doing is you're pushing some of these pixels to black. What does that have? The subjective effect is the anti-aliasing goes away. So if that happens, you literally just add a blur filter back, like about a 2 pixel blur, maybe only 1. But if you add back in a 1 pixel blur, you're back to where you started, basically. In fact, arguably, the lines are even more uniform at that point, if that's what you're after. So anyway, so I think I did this excuse me, during the live stream yesterday, getting the more exaggerated motion. And then here, I did this last night offline. Because I really kind of wanted to tighten up the pencil test and figure out what am I really trying to do here attitudinally. Okay, and so let's just finish inking Monkey's head, since we are going to have to do that right there. And then we'll be done with Monkey. So, Monkey's head. I believe I've got the correct brush. Yeah. I have to say, as a guy who's probably given more time than he should to the idea of finding ways to work efficiently, in other words, let's say there's a dichotomy between the pursuit of speed versus the pursuit of quality. Doesn't necessarily have to be the case, but oftentimes that kind of is. They sort of are a bit mutually exclusive. I have to say that the more I just slow the heck down and really drill in here and just enjoy getting it right, it's just something to note, you know. Good or right trumps fast in every case. But I guess when you're a little ADHD like me, you know, you tend to hurry. There's a host of reasons I won't get into why I've at different times been probably not as patient as I should be in my work process, at least as far as animation goes. But okay, so now I'm going to do the little trick that I just said. This is actually a great application of what I was talking about, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. The idea is that we're going from, remember, I guess 2 days ago I said, one of the dangers is you're going from a rough pencil test, which this is clearly, it's just almost sticks and balls, really. So one way that I've gotten myself in trouble many times is by going directly from a rough pencil test to ink. And the reason is because you get into things like here, like this arm that my imagination just filled in, and you realize that there are things, usually it's actually things related to like costuming and stuff like that, but what you realize is there's stuff in the art that you hadn't yet figured out, and now you just have to draw it on the fly with your ink, right? And what happens is, let's just say that's a vulnerability point where it's highly likely that you're gonna either rush it or get sloppy or whatever. Okay, let's just say. Well, this technique isn't a bad way to find the middle ground. I just gave him like way too muscly of an arm, probably because I'm talking and drawing at the same time. So using the red brush and then just figuring we'll alpha it back out to at least fill in the stuff that's missing in the rough. The rough pencil test is not the worst technique in the world. So hit the 5 key, and obviously we're still dealing with some serious anatomical challenges because, again, I swear, it's like, geez, Dave, why do you live stream? When I'm live streaming, my work ethic like goes down the toilet here because I'm more interested in talking to you guys than being uber careful. So this is a little better. Let's just look at that size. Trying to map the actual lengths of the appendages, and this one's probably actually a little bit too short. So I'm going to knock that down a little bit. And then just hit the X key and let's see how it goes. I'm going to have to do a little cleanup operation here, but we'll just give this a try. This will be a real world example of the technique that I shared just a bit ago. Okay, I'm just going to delineate his knuckles. I'm not going to be too picky about fingers on this shot. So guess what I was watching this morning while I drank my coffee? I was watching One Punch Man. What a great show. Just a hilarious premise, really. I think. Okay, let's just go ahead and if you haven't watched One Punch Man, check it out. You can watch it for free on Tubi. And Tubi's a good platform. My chick flick horse movies are available on Tubi, so you can watch them for free there. Although it's actually possible to do it on YouTube as well if somebody wanted to. But yeah, I think Tubi's such a great platform. You know, it's free because it's ad supported, but they just don't get intrusive and with the ads. Okay, so what we're going to do is let's turn the pencil test off so that we can see what we're working with here. So you can see on this cell, we got to do something. So here's what we're going to do. Filter, color to alpha. Boom. We're going to use red. And as you can see, if you look really closely, by dialing the color around the wheel, you can really dial in the exact color you're after. Usually a setting of 100 on the threshold is about right. And then to really drive it home, it's actually doing it actually just did the it repeated the current setting, so I actually saw it change a little bit. But if we go to the alpha, you can see that it's actually already clamped a little bit. So that should do the trick. Now we're not going to know for sure until we do the fill operation. So you could test it in a quick hurry by going, well, we can do multiply mode. That would be okay. So boom. That's pretty much perfect. So I guess that worked pretty freaking well. So there you go. I proved my methodology is actually a workable methodology. Okay, so I'm going to take half a second here and look at the comments. Poems. Okay, so she's a poet. Gives you solid source material to draw from, try it out. You know, a book I've been reading, basically at bedtime, I'll probably read for like 10, 15 minutes. I've been going back and rereading Jimmy Webb's book called Toonsmith, which is all about the craft and business of songwriting. And right at the beginning of the book, he talks quite a bit about grist for the creative mill. I think, and it's a good. It's kind of a timely topic here because I think it was, who was it the other day? It's one of you guys that comes around a lot, but and I'm drawing a blank, but basically the comment was that I need a story before I can animate, create my, whatever I'm going to create, I need a story. And man, I tell you, the stories are all around you. They're everywhere. Well, especially for short form content, Okay, so here I will say, is this monkey head or is this monkey bod? This is monkey bod. I actually put this in the bod. Okay, so this is a little weird. Let's go to monkey bod. Yeah, I guess I did put it there. So I'm going to hit the A key. I did some other experiments, by the way. Just so you guys know, I did some experiments this morning with Liquify because the question here in Krita would be, can we reasonably well emulate the kind of power and flexibility we have with the OpenTunes plastic tool? And the answer is kind of. I tried each of these different methodologies of deforming your art, and I actually wound up right back at Liquify. But the thing that I noticed in the settings that was actually kind of helpful was going ahead and turning on pressure on the amount. And I'll show you why. I'm going to hit enter and show you where it made a difference. And this is where it kind of ties in with the idea of the sorts of things you do with the plastic tool. Is when you're wanting to do a rotation. Okay, if you do a rotation, let me see here. Now this is kind of bad because this is actually very bad. What I'm seeing right now is very bad. What am I seeing? I'm seeing that Krita 5 in the interface, it's almost impossible to tell whether this is actually clicked in or not. It looks to me like it is. But anyway, if you click it in and you're doing a rotation, what I found was having pressure on rotation allows you to more controllably ease in a rotation operation. So rotation. Okay, so I want rotation. And by the way, just so you know, Krita is still pretty stupid about the settings. In other words, if I do an operation like this, and then I want to add some standard Liquify, I can't switch to this tool and then start using it. The minute I click the canvas, it'll switch back to whatever was the previous tool. So you have to click the canvas and then decide what tool you want to use. Now for me, I hate to say it again, but for me, that's one of those things that's ASAP. That's as stupid as possible. Like, you would never want that. But that's the way Krita works, and it's the way it's worked for a long time. So you have to click the canvas, then go back and click what tool you actually want to use, then go back to your canvas. Right. That's what I call really, really, really stupid. But, that's what we get, so. It's better than not having the tools, right? So, just saying. Just saying. Well, in the past, sometimes I've ranted about those types of things because maybe there's something I'm missing, right? With something like that. Maybe there's something obvious that I'm just overlooking because it's just the way I work. But it strikes me as one of those things that makes me go, oh my gosh, have the developers ever actually used the tool that they coded here? And you think there's no way, because if they used it just one time, they go, oh, geez, we obviously overlooked something here. So, but hey, man, just one man's opinion. So, okay, so what are we doing with, let's turn this off. I'm going to turn off the monkey body and see. Okay, so it looks like we definitely have a bit of a mixing here of the head and the body. Why don't we, since this is all ink, let's just hit Control E. Actually, I want to double check my hotkeys here. Yeah, it's actually, okay, yeah. So it used to be Control E would work for both merge and flatten layer. Now it favors Control Shift E for flatten layer. In this case, what we're doing is we're merging down, so it would be actually Control E. So that puts all of the monkey's ink in a single layer. So probably a good thing, since I'm basically done animating the little guy. Now I could see maybe doing a little liquefy here to like right here. Let's just try this. There's no real cost to doing it because I can always just get rid of the frames if I don't like what it does. Okay, so this might be an example where using the rotation might be useful. So I click the tool, I click the canvas, and let's see. Usually the way I think of it is with rotation, R for reverse, the word reverse starts with an R, so that means if you click reverse, it's going to rotate to the right. I know that's stupid, but that's pretty much my way of remembering. So we're just adding a little rotation, and I'm going to do this twice. Just for fun. I just want to kind of, whoops, okay, that was not what was supposed to happen. Just to see how it feels. If monkey were to sort of, yeah, that's too fast. There's too much. So I'm going to actually clamp that down to 3 frames and maybe even 2. Probably 3's okay. Hello. Boom. That's a good example of like, okay, I've demonstrated the idea, but the execution's pretty awful. So it's a good idea, but not very well implemented. Let me get rid of that keyframe and just make this a twofer. That's better. Okay, let's turn the old man back on so we can get his ink going. And let's add a layer, and we'll call this blind guy. Okay, boy, quite a bit of chitter chatter today. That's good. Whoa, man. Jeesh, a lot of chat. Life is but a dream. Book, screenplay, storyboard, animation. Yeah, well, I've got plenty of grist for my mill since Valerie's actually into the second. She's actually begun the second book of her second series. I think it's fair to say series. Now, the first book she wrote isn't a series yet, but it's clearly setting up a series. But the second book, she's been having so much fun writing it It's that finishing the first book has just propelled her into starting the second, which is kind of cool. So there's an entire universe to create an anime for, just waiting for me. So I have no, between Salt and Light, Akari, Val's new book series, and I guess you could argue the Futurama fan animation, I've got enough to keep me busy for about 10 years. That's for sure. Source material. Always stay master the primitives and the technique to master what you want to know. Well, I tell you what talking about seeing the three-dimensional forms yesterday, I think that for a lot of people, that's actually one of the reasons why the Blender grease pencil is a really good tool, because you can load 3D primitives onto your screen and use them as a guide to draw, Is it on Netflix? I mean, I knew One Punch Man used to be on Netflix, but the last 2 years when Netflix has, they've really culled their offerings to focus on their original stuff. And a lot of the anime, there used to be tons of anime on Netflix, and a lot of it disappeared. So I was assuming it wasn't there, but it is on Tubi. Tubi. Just go to Tubi.com, and for free, they really do have kind of a lot of content. I mean, I currently don't even have Netflix. I haven't had Netflix for a couple of years now. One Punch Man, Maria, you'll probably get a kick out of it. It's so silly. The show isn't silly. The show is somewhat silly. Like it's like a serious with comic underpinnings. I guess in other words, the tone of it is not overtly comedic, but there's a lot of funny things in it. But the basic underlying premise is really, really comically ridiculous, but in a really fun way. So I'll just leave it at that, and you can discover for yourself. But you watch the first episodes, and maybe arguably I would say watch the first two, which you can do inside of 1 hour, and you'll totally get what the whole series is about, and you either will like it or not, probably. Okay, most anime is never heard of One Punch Man. I've seen them all, even with all of his power. In most cases, plot device to drive the story along. Well, clearly, that's what it is. It is kind of like a superhero parody, and I think there's tons of room in the marketplace for more of that type of thing. I think if we, taking the idioms that we've all gotten used to and sort of flipping them on their head and having fun with them is a great. Yeah, I like the Tick a little bit. I mean, the Tick, that's true. I will say that the Tick, I don't remember it real well, but because we're going back to the 80s or 90s here, but yeah, the Tick was absolutely tongue-in-cheek, for sure. I'm surprised no animation story has no animated liquefy outside of a post-program link. Well, and at the same time, put it this way, Amar, if a person was well entrenched in let's call it a professional workflow, and what I mean by professional is a workflow that assumes you're not like me. It assumes that there's a team involved. It assumes that there's going to be some data interchange, not only between departments, but also between the sequential steps of production. If that's your paradigm and that's how you operate, then it actually turns out that tools like Liquify aren't that important. Why? Because you could take the image sequences from Krita and just bring them into, say, Blender, map them to a plane, or even bone them up with a rig or whatever you want to do. It's just assumed that there's this constant flow between software programs. The main thing that's missing with Krita is the ability to anchor the influence to some sort of bone or axle, if you will. In other words, when I use the Liquify tool, in a perfect world, the way it would work, or one way that it would work, would be that I would have the ability to provide a linear range of influence and an anchor point. If you had that with Liquify, it would be an amazing tool. So then the idea would be that you would have a selection area, but then the range of influence of the tool would actually pass out of the selection area with sort of a gradient range in between of influence so that you could put an anchor point somewhere like in the neck, for example. And then when you rotate it, it would basically, it would move all these pixels, but it would just stretch these ones here that are at the border. So for Krita, actually, if I was going to do that, if I was going to have that benefit for Krita, probably, I mean, liquefy is one thing, but actually just a standard transform, sorry, A key. The standard transform, if you just had the ability to have a hard selection and then a soft selection outside of it, that's a stretch range, that would solve that too, because then you could actually anchor this wherever you want it to be. And see, right now you can do it, but then you have to just do a quick fill and fix job here wherever it gets cut, right? So now what I'm talking about, right now the animated transform masks in Krita only work with the standard free transform. They don't work with liquefy and stuff. Just understandable. I mean, you'd have to do a calculation of liquefy on every single one of these frames. It would get pretty computationally intensive. However, if Krita only had this one thing different, which is if you create a selection, have the ability to create a second. Actually, the thing that would be cool would be actually a second selection. So that what would the second selection be? Would be like, I would draw another selection like this, but the second one would be that gradient thing, and then you probably have to have a widget so that you set what the, because you've got ostensibly within that selection you've got a range of no, or a maximum deformation versus no deformation. And of course the software doesn't know if you want to start here and go to here or start here and go to here. In other words, the software doesn't know where the bone is. So in that scenario, you would draw the second selection and then probably just click to create a simple widget that at least visually tells you where the range of influence is. So everything in the first selection would be, completely deformed, i.e. moved, rotated, whatever, and everything within this range would go from full deformation here to no deformation at all here. And the net result would be everything here in between would just stretch a little bit to just make the transformation work. If they could add that to Krita, oh my gosh, that would pretty much sink it for me in terms of animation capabilities, because you'd be able to essentially create boning systems on the fly, where you just have like almost like a temporary bone system that you can set up in 1 minute, do what you need to do, and then just throw it away when you're done. Just bake it down or whatever. For me, I would like that. That would be cool. All right, let's get back to the blind guy. We'll ignore the coin for the moment. Boom. Okay, so here we've got the blind guy. So let's get him inked. And we'll just hit insert so that there's a one blank frame. And now I'm going to do what I said a minute ago. I'm going to go from red to black. And I'm going to use my red. Okay, not selection, silly. I want the brush. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the red to just dial in the pencil test. Now there's one thing I need to check here on the show. I need to really pull up the only strong close-up I have of the blind guy so that I get his costuming right. Because I know me, and I know I will foul it up in a big way. Okay. Turns out there's not much to his costuming, actually. So again, what I'm doing is I'm just using my red pencil to punch up the detail on my pencil test. And then I'll hit the X key to switch to black for the actual ink lines. So somebody out there might be going, well, that's kind of stupid. Why don't you just punch up your pencil test in the pencil test layer? Well, just for illustration purposes, basically. Just for illustration purposes. Okay, hit the X key, and now I'm going to just dial in. And one thing I do on my laptop actually all the time is I hit the tab key and just go to full screen. I really like working full screen, and I've been amazed at how much I like working with my cheapo $30 Wacom tablet. Well, it's not a Wacom, I'm sorry. It's actually an XP Pen, but it's a standard tablet. It's not a tablet screen like this one. And for those of you who can't afford a screen and are really sure that it would revolutionize your workflow, let me tell you, it is better. There's no arguing that it's better to be able to draw directly on the surface. But, and I did mention this the other day, so some of you are hearing this twice, is that I have found on the laptop, to my surprise, that the key thing with a tablet is just that the surface area is big enough. Mainly a one-to-one mapping. In other words, if I move my stylus an inch, or maybe a better way to put it would be, if I move my stylus 10% of the way across the drawing area, it also moves 10% on the screen, basically. It's like a one-to-one mapping. Now, in order to have that, you have to have a pretty big surface area. So if the surface area of your tablet is about like this, you know, like about like a 3x5, which my old 15-year-old Wacom tablet, that's exactly what it is. It just doesn't, it doesn't translate, because you move your stylus this much, and on the screen it draws a line like that, right? So what I've found is, if you have a cheapo tablet, again, this one was like $30. It was the XP Pen Deco. As long as there's a relatively equal mapping between your surface and your screen, I don't see much difference. Certainly not in the enjoyment of the process. I'm just as productive and have just as much fun with the standard tablet as I do the screen. It really, it could be argued that the screen might be more efficient, you know? I don't know. I just wanted to make the point that I don't really think it is. If you're really drooling over the idea of having a screen, just take it from somebody who knows that it's actually maybe not as important as you think it is, and you can really solve your problem with a standard, very, very inexpensive tablet. Okay, so now what we need to do, I need to look at the shape of this guy's eyes, and I'm going to hit the X key again so I can really block this in nicely. And one of the other things we're going to look at here shortly is that in Krita 5, all of the filters have the ability, I can show you if we go to color, because we're going to do this. If you do color to alpha, you'll notice this option here called multi-frame. So what that means is, it used to be in Krita that if you wanted to apply a filter to an entire animated layer, what you'd have to do is actually do what's called creating a filter mask, which has its own advantages because it can be edited after the fact. Okay, so the way we used to do it in Krita is you'd go filter, colors, color to alpha, go ahead and dial that in like so, but then you would create a filter mask. Okay, so the advantage of that is that it's applied to the layer, but you can always just turn it off and then return it on. And the other advantage is that you can hit F3 and edit the settings at any time. So it's way more flexible. And then what you have to do is flatten the layer to sort of bake the filter into the layer. All right. Well, with Krita 5, we now have the ability to do multi-frame filters, which means if you're really sure you know that the effect of the filter is what you want, then you can go ahead and apply the filter and just hit multi-frame, and what it'll do is apply that filter to every animated frame. So it just saves you a couple steps, basically. That's pretty much it. Not a revolutionary change, which is often true with software. You know, people are out there, because this is what really does happen, especially with open source software. You get people crying about, I wish we had the ability to have like a multi-frame filter, and they don't realize that capability was already there in the software and has been for years. It's just that there's two steps. You apply filter mask, and then you flatten the layer. Pretty simple. But, you got to do a little deeper dive into knowing the software to realize that a lot of times the features that you wish were there actually already are. The one glaring omission, of course, in Krita has been the ability to do any kind of really decent animated keyframing. And so that's finally been rectified with Krita 5, and it is definitely a very tangible improvement in the software. By the way, Krita 5 is also pretty darn stable, I have to say. The last 4-point version, which I think is 4. I don't know. I think the one I was using a lot was 4.1.7. So I don't know what the last 4-point version was, but the last version I used was definitely more stable than previous versions had been, which was great. They don't seem to have taken a step backward with Krita 5, I'm happy to say. So let's go back to full screen so we see what we're doing. I can just have a little bigger. This is what I was saying the other day when I talked about these animators that are still animating on paper. And I was kind of, like guys like Aaron Blaze still do a lot of work on paper. And I'm just like, why would you do that? And I'm almost like incredulous that anyone would ever animate on paper because of all the extra steps required, So, point being that if you take any software like Krita, and you do the same thing in Tahoma, you can go full screen. If you go full screen on a 15-inch screen, you essentially have exactly what you have with paper. So I guess you can maybe argue about the tooth and the feel of paper, because it does have its own attraction, but you sure don't have the ability to do this with paper. You can't zoom in and out, and I'm not quite sure. I think it might just be a matter of whatever you're used to. It's maybe sometimes harder to make the change. I'm a Luddite myself in some areas, obviously, since I've been complaining about Discord bots, which, some 14-year-old kid sets up a Discord server and he just installs all the bots and they all just do what they do, and to him that's normal and he doesn't even think about it. Right? And I totally respect the fact that is how the world works. I mean, stuff that I find really annoying, other people are like, what? Why would, that's just what it does. What's the problem here? Okay, now there we've got a little bit of a problem in that we have to switch away from Krita in order to get it to, it has a little bit of a thing about freezing, which usually seems to happen with the middle mouse button. Now you can avoid using the middle mouse button by you can use the space bar for moving, shift space for rotation, and control space for zooming, and what am I trying to say here? Oh, I was going to say that the hotkeys for zooming and rotating are the opposite of Tahoma. Tahoma actually has them reversed compared to Krita. So for me, I thought that was going to be a bigger problem than it is. I seem to just remember usually when I'm switching software. I might do it wrong one time and then I just sort of switch back into remembering the correct sequence of clicky clicks. So again, here's an example where I really needed to tighten up the pencil test because I just roughed it in and assumed I would kind of know what to do at ink time. So we'll just kind of give him a sort of relaxed, his fingers are just sort of curled up like that. We do probably want to give some indication of his little toesies there. Nah, I don't like that. That looks stupid. I mean, the scale is all wrong. Again, an example of what I was talking about, needing to make sure we get this blocked in properly. What I can see here is that this guy is actually a little bit too big, probably. So yeah, I think I'll go with that for the moment. I may change my mind, but so let's just rough in where the pieces of his little body would be so that we can then, that's better. Okay, I'm going to take half a second and look at the chat. It looks like there's quite a bit going on. What do we got here? Wow, Amar, dude, you are as verbal as me. Sort of liquefied with plastic tools, clunky as all heck. I completely disagree with you on that one. I think that once you learn how to set up a skeleton that gives you control by using protective nodes like I do, I've been finding increasingly lately that I can get even to the point where I did one the other day where the character squinted their eyes very nicely and it didn't affect the rest of the head or anything. So if you just have to use the skeleton, you know. The key to the skeleton tool is not what you would intuitively think, which is editing the strength of the nodes. The solution to the plastic tool is to just add more nodes where you want to better control the influence. What you mean? Plastic tool. Clunky as all heck. If you were creating an animated liquefied, it would also include channels to allow for flexible interpolation. Additionally, you'd be able to do it straight ahead or interpolated way. Basically, for me, the behavior that you get in Blender when you apply a drawing to a mesh and then you subdivide the mesh, but then you have the ability to use the proportional editing tool to grab a few nodes in the mesh, you know, vertices, and move or rotate them, and then have those moves immediately map to a shape key so that you can dial in the strength of it anytime and animate that. I mean, basically, the truth of the matter is, bones and rigging and inverse kinematics aside, imagery mapped to planes in Blender is about as powerful and flexible as it gets. It really, I mean, it's like there's nothing you can't do in terms of manipulating your pixels. The problem is you've got essentially, you probably have about 1 to 2 minutes of housekeeping in order to use it. So BetaFax, welcome to the, what's your source of income and where do you upload this type of high-level animation? Because in your channel you have low views on your high-level animation. Well, boy, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't have that. Sorry for the delay here. It's been a few minutes since you asked the question, so I apologize. I was working and now I'm reading through the chit chat. But my source of income is that I have commercial clients. Okay, I mean I've worked for myself for 30 years, but I have commercial, you know, business to business clients that I provide various media related services to. So that's what pays the bills. BetaFax, is he doing something other than animation for his livelihood? Absolutely, sir. Yes. I don't want you to think I'm bro, animation takes much more time than we think, so he puts hours in on something that doesn't belong to his livelihood. It's a mite awkward. Well, correct. He's talented in his animation, so I thought he might be doing something other in this field, like freelancing or something else. No, I would never. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Okay, I'm your inspiration. I get it. Again, I apologize for the slow reply. Okay, so here's the story. I started in 1991. Okay, I think I was 24 years old. I started, and so I have clients all over the country. For example, I mean, I've got clients I've done website development for. I've got clients that I've done, you know, if you call their business and they stick you on hold, you know, thank you for calling. Someone will be handling your call shortly, and then you get stuck on hold. And while you're waiting on hold, you hear, "Hey, thanks for calling ABC Company. We're glad you've called. Hey, did you know that you can get this and get that and take advantage of this offer and that offer?" Okay, so you've heard that service, and you probably find it annoying. Well, that service has paid my bills for 30 years. Okay, so that's definitely one of the things that I do. Okay. In 2000, okay, so but because I work for myself, and I can work my own schedule. In 2008-ish, just for fun, a friend of mine and I decided, let's make a movie. We were doing like corporate video and stuff, and we decided to make a movie. Anyway, long story short is we made this movie. It was okay. It got picked up by sort of a third-tier cable network guy who became a friend, and when they were ready to sort of bootstrap original content, oops, that's not what was supposed to happen right there. When they were ready to get original content for their platform, they came to me and one other budget filmmaker to do like a 6-picture deal. So I had this 6-picture movie deal, and I want to say significantly, for about over a 10-year period, I made 8 movies. Okay, wrote them, directed them. My biggest claim to fame is really that every one of my movies cost about the same amount of money to make, almost exactly. Every single one of my movies cost $8,000. And all of the money went to the actors, like 100%. None of them, so I was basically working for free. And that's what I spent to make those movies. And the reason I spent that, the reason I found ways to really economize was that, I guess we actually want to switch to this, was that the total budget to make a film, I'm talking start to finish. You've got to get a script, you got to direct it, you got to pay your actors, find locations, edit the thing, special effects, music, everything. Okay? Everything. The total budget to make the films was $36,000. So I had to find a way to make a complete movie, and whatever it cost me to make the movie came out of that $36,000. Okay? So the net result was that I could profit about $24,000. I could make about $24,000, which you can do the math. It takes about 6 months to make a movie, start to finish, and that's if you're moving pretty fast. So you can do the math. Right? So I'm ostensibly clearing, I don't know, I guess over the period of time of making a film, I guess it comes out to about $1,000 a week, which isn't horrible, but so as far as production goes, that's my claim to fame with movies. As far as fame and fortune goes, my claim to fame would be having written and directed one of those 8 movies was a chick flick horse movie that ultimately made like $1 million at retail. In other words, it didn't make me $1 million, okay? Actually, I can tell you what it made me. Over the lifetime, like over 10 years, that movie's made me, I think, maybe about $80,000, spread over 10 years. So it's not much, actually. And that's not a bad thing or whatever. The thing is that this second-tier cable network or third-tier cable network is who, they paid to get the movie made. So for me, I did it because it was like an opportunity to get my foot in the door of the film industry, which it did. So then 5 years ago, I released a sequel to that movie, which I owned completely. So I spent the $8,000 out of my own pocket. I hired Sean Young, who you might know. She's been in Blade Runner, and she was in the Ace Ventura movie. And, she's kind of a Hollywood bad girl who, that's her reputation anyway. So hired Sean Young, still managed to keep the budget under $8,000, made a sequel, and that was that. After that movie, I thought, I'm kind of sick of the whole movie making thing. I've been there, done that. What can I do from here? And what I decided was I'm going to... Wait, I have to finish inking this guy. I'm sorry. I got to add the black here. So then I decided, I don't know, it's been like 3 years ago. I'm like, you know what? I've been a cartoonist ever since I was a kid, That's really what I wanted to do in high school was comic books. I wanted to do comic books. I was into Frazetta and John Buscema. Buscema was probably my main influence for sure. Although the way I draw now has evolved away from the Buscema influence. But yeah, that's what I wanted to do was comic books. So what I did was I just said, you know what? I had poked at animation for years, going back to the late 90s, but I never really created anything, that was large scale or finished in the entertainment space, because I've done like explainer videos here and there for clients, a couple times. So you can make a little money doing explainer videos. There's definitely a good market for that right now, for sure. I'm not chasing that business, but I think it's pretty easy to get, and if you have the ability with tools like I use here, like between Krita, Blender, and Tahoma, I've certainly got everything I need to create a complete explainer video for a client, So, short answer to your question is really my commercial business still pays my bills, and I figured I'm just going to give myself as much time as it takes to get a cartoon out that I like, that I'm happy with, and hopefully it'll get some traction. That's why I'm releasing webisodes, is so that, it's like just maybe it'll get some traction. And I don't even know how many views the first episode of this show has at this point. I haven't looked at it in a few days. But you're correct. I mean, this is not a popular channel. I am not crushing it on YouTube. But I'm not really trying to either. It's important for me, very important for me actually, that I be fundamentally about the creation of properties of content. Everything about social networking, it's important because you are building your audience ultimately. But I also have a strong conviction that the work itself carries the day. So ultimately, if the show is entertaining, it will find its audience. It absolutely will. It'll take time. Might take a lot of time. Might take a year, or something, to sort of trickle out there. And then I could contact maybe, I could contact probably some of these larger web portals that are about animation and say, hey, I'm this guy that's just kind of this little YouTuber. But I've done something that actually no one in the history of the world has done. Okay? What have I done that no one in the history of the world has done? Well, I'm one guy who wrote, animated, created the musical score, and frankly did most of the voices on this complete, full 24-minute animated cartoon. And by the way, I've actually got one episode completely out there, and I'm working on the second episode, kind of thing. Well, it's true. Nobody in the history of the world has done that. Not that that means much. It doesn't actually mean much at all. It's a little bit of bragging rights, I suppose, but basically, who cares? And the answer is an interesting answer. I think it's a very interesting answer. The answer is nobody cares. That's an important thing to remember here. Nobody cares. Statistically, no one gives a flying you-know-what about anything I'm doing. They don't care. Why would they? Some idiot is sitting around drawing cartoons all day. So what? Well, the point is, if the show ultimately is entertaining, then the fact that it was created just by one guy might have a little bit of, there's a little bit of intrigue to that, right? That's kind of an interesting thing, because nobody really does that, right? That's insane. So it's like, goes back to your original question. Of course, I have other ways of paying my bills, because how is this making me any money? This isn't making me any money. But I've been in the entertainment industry for a while, and so am I pretty confident that it will ultimately pay off? Yeah, I am. And I'm also pretty confident that it will have a very long shelf life, actually. Once it does kind of find its audience, I think it'll probably continue to earn reasonably well, probably for many years. And there's also very little doubt in my mind that it will open up other doors. Okay, so if Salt and Light gets a little bit of traction, do you think maybe, just maybe, the good folks at, I don't know, let's say Amazon Prime, would say, we might want to take a meeting with this guy. Let's maybe kind of find out what other creative ideas he's working on. Maybe there's some synergy there. These are all things that I actually believe almost for sure will happen. And it's just like, what's the rush, man? You know? There's no big hurry to get to it. Because none of it means diddly. None of it means a freaking thing. Until I've shown that I can actually create the work. You know? That's the only thing that matters. Can you do the work? Can you deliver the goods? As I like to say. Very, very important. You must be able to deliver the goods. So, that's probably more of an answer than you wanted, but it's the truth and it's the accurate answer. And I will say that I absolutely I'm so grateful that I can sit here and work on this, a couple hours a day. I can't work on it full time, really. I mean, I do have other things I need to attend to, again, to sort of pay the bills. But at least I can work on it when I want to, for the most part, because just because being self-employed, I do kind of make my own schedule, kind of thing. So I'm quite grateful for that as well. I totally understand two sides of that coin. Side one of the coin is that not a lot of people get that type of opportunity that I have, in a sense. Oops. But the other side of that is, well, yeah, but I've also earned it over many, many years. So, yeah, I see it from both sides. I can know that I've earned my opportunities, but at the same time be grateful for them, and I am. Boom, boom, boom. We got to give this boy an ear. Give that boy an ear. Okay, so, hey, Goswami. So I'm going to go back here and I'm glad I'm your inspiration. I don't know how much help I am to anybody. I just do what I do. Of course, I think I'm the most interesting person in the United States of America. Who could possibly be as interesting as me? I'm being silly. So, this, not sure about I think I need to make this a little more stylized. I'm falling back, maybe it's because I'm talking about my history. I'm kind of falling back into my comic booky thing a little bit. I think this really needs to be more stylized. Yes, that's better. Fits the tone of the show a little bit better. Now, in this case, what I need to do, I want to keep, yeah, I think I want to keep the body. Let's just kind of push that over a little bit, and then we'll erase the face and hitting the G key and then the E key, so I'm doing a freehand path tool in erase mode, which gives you the effect of a lasso eraser. Duh. So, boom, boom, boom. Okay. I'm going to erase that too. And that. Okay. So, I need to get the basic animation feeling of his shoulder, so we'll call that a tween essentially, and then he's going to land something like this. Okay, and then the key thing here, let's just go ahead and give these arcs. Now that's amazing. I mean literally, I guess I'm kind of talking to BetaFax. Are you even still here, BetaFax, or are you gone? I've probably bored you to death. I've bored BetaFax to death. Which I could understand. Now I am going to let his eye go back like this. But I think the thing to do here would be, we'll probably animate his eyes so that they dart a little bit, kind of looking out into space, because the guy is blind. And that's why I didn't really give him any pupils. He's just got these irises. And so now what we got to do is sort of get the continuity here. Probably, let's do it like this. There we go. That'll work. Okay, so boom, boom, boom. So this is quite stylized. Certainly may not be everyone's cup of tea as far as, stylistically. But this does seem to be working. Meaning that it seems to feel pretty consistent with the style of the show. Now I'm actually looking on the other screen at an earlier shot of this guy just to make sure I'm getting his pretty much on character. So yeah, I think I bored Beta Fax to death, and he left. It's understandable. What I'm doing just ain't that interesting. Unless you're really, really into it. I certainly wouldn't sit through this. I mean, unless I was somebody that really wanted to do something of this nature and really was up for the challenge of it, then I would find it inspirational. I would, and I have watched this type of stuff on other channels, but I mean, there really aren't too many people that are doing just sitting there trudging away at animation work, for all to see. That's why I call it the Animation Truman Show. Because it's a little bit unfiltered and not particularly glamorous. Okay, I am getting a little concerned here. I moved my mouse wheel, by the way, and that made Krita do its little stupid lockup thing a little bit. But I'm wondering about the scale of this. Let's go ahead and run forward here. I do not... Yeah, that is definitely a bit of a strange drawing of the guy. But what's bugging me here, I'm going to turn this off. I really got this expression wrong. I blew it. This is wrong. Oh, erase. Yeah, there we go. I needed to see my freaking sketch. Okay, yeah. See, he's supposed to be a little bit more wide-eyed and looking, and just sort of looking off into space. Because again, being blind, he doesn't necessarily have the ability to focus his vision, obviously, but yet he's very sensitive, as many blind people are, and so he is able to reach out and accept the gift that the monkey's given him. So I'm gonna say, yeah, I don't like his. He needs to be more, more wonderment, if you will. I'm trying to get used to using the. Oh, I know why. Okay, the reason I use the middle mouse button, Krita has a long-standing problem of. It does a spectacularly bad job of dealing with hotkey conflicts. When you work with Krita, it looks like it understands how to deal with hotkey conflicts, and then you find out time and again that it actually doesn't. So, my point being, yes, in Krita, the spacebar does give you the ability to pan your screen. I'll prove it right now. See? The problem is, right now, look at how everything's blinking down here. Krita also understands that the space bar is the play button on the animation. So it's registering play stop, play stop, play stop, play stop like 5,000 times per second. when I hit the spacebar. So fortunately, the bugginess seems to be more associated with the mouse wheel, so zooming in and out, than it does with like I can click my middle mouse and drag around and it doesn't create a lock condition. When I zoom, it sometimes does, and it's not very consistent either, by the way. So okay, so now what we're going to do, I guess I'll just block in the animation here. Because we're going to have to do a little liquefy on his face, I think, because he really needs to kind of start to smile. So let's see here. Boom. Yeah, that is awful. Let's go Shift Alt and push these forward. So he turns. Nope, I got the wrong one there. That's supposed to be there. So he needs to turn and then reach out. So I know this is confusing to look at because of the pencil test. Creating confusion. And here, I feel like I want this to even go a little further. So I'm going to anchor that there. See how that feels. So it turns. Yeah, that's better. Okay, cool. Good. All right, better save my work. Beta Effects, you're still hearing it. Okay, love from India. Okay, cool. Got a good friend in, a dear friend, actually, one of my closest friends for 35 years, who's from Bombay. And she's there now. What do they call Bombay these days? It's not called Bombay anymore, is it? I forget what it's called, but that's where she is. There's a really good team here on YouTube. I think their YouTube channel is called Team Miracles, TEAM Miracles, and they're posting a lot of really good content, and they seem to be, judging from the way they speak. I'm an idiot American, okay, so I don't necessarily know the difference between somebody who's Indian or maybe Pakistani, but it sounds to me like they're from India, and they're doing really good work with the Blender grease pencil. So, Team Miracle. So that might be a channel you want to check out. All right. It's kind of funny because every time I hit about this point, about the hour and a half point, I always start to run out of gas a little bit. We're making good progress, though. Here, let's go ahead and run these filters individually, as opposed to running them over the whole thing, because what's really going to have to happen here, if you're paying attention, really what we need to do is just ink these 3 drawings, and then these are just going to be repeats. I'm going to actually do some drag and drop again and just animate them. There's no reason to ink and paint that 3 times. Anyway, point of the story is I'm going to do a filter, colors, and I probably should turn this off. Okay, that's okay. Let's go here, and now I can just hit Control F and repeat it. Here, I'm not going to do it because I don't have the black lines in there yet. Okay, so the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a filter. Well, it's Control M. It's Curves tool. All right, and what I'm going to do is the cleanup step, which clamps the alpha. So it looks to me, frankly, like that's pretty good. So here I'll do Control F again. I can faintly see the remnants of the red there, so if I hit Control F, yeah, that cleaned it right up. So good. Excellent. That's a pretty aggressive cleanup, actually. That's what we were talking about earlier. You can still see a little bit of chromaticity and alpha on the edges, but it's definitely higher contrast than it was. So the question always becomes, how are the fill operations going to go? So in this case, let's just find out. We're in multiply mode already, so let's see what happens. Oh, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. So it's always been a bit of a thing with Krita that if you clamp down the alpha so stuff disappears, the actual data is still there, and it can serve to create a blocking barrier for a fill operation. Hope that makes sense. In other words, you'd click to fill, but it wouldn't fill very well because it's actually bumping into all kinds of pixels that you can't see. That seems to be less of a problem than it used to with Krita 5. So I'm not sure why, but I'm sure glad. All right, so I'm going to hit the X key, switching to the black. And for those who are curious about the Bezier curve tool, let's use it just for fun. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Bezier curve tool here, because when you're dealing with somebody who's got basically a Charlie Brown type head, you know, uh-oh, my bad. Undo. Didn't mean for that to be filled with the background color. Now we'll see if this turns out okay. When I was just for fun drawing Saitama from One Punch Man earlier, I was actually just using the oval. Okay, I'll just show you guys this actually. You may find this quite useful. One of the things you may not know is that if you use the oval tool in Krita, draw the oval. If you hit shift, it'll constrain it to a circle. If you hit alt, this is where it gets really interesting and kind of puts it above most such tools in other software. If you hit alt, you can then move it. Get it exactly where you want it to be. Let go of the alt key. Okay, get it resized a bit. And then you say, well, yeah, but that's still a little incomplete there, Dave, because we kind of like to be able to rotate it as well. Well, guess what? You can. Just hit the control key. So alt and control lets you do this. Then you let go of control. You see what that does? And now, of course, why it's filled again, I haven't. Oh, it's because I'm not using the Bezier path tool. I'm using it. So yeah, apparently fill it with the background color seems to be the functional default. So, but the ability to dial in an ellipse and then move it into position is hugely useful. And then you just hit GE, so you're doing a freehand path in erase mode to get rid of that extra. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Just another tool in the toolkit. Yada, yada, yada. On we go. Okay, quick look at the interactive DNA. I highly recommend streaming in 4K from 1040p canvas so the UI looks like the original, not blurred. Right. Well, it's going to be a cold day in hell before I stream in 4K. Sorry. However, streaming in HD, now that would be something that would be maybe a possibility for sure. So, gee, maybe that's why I don't have as many viewers on my channel. Could be. Maybe there's people out there that are going, you know, it's really cool to watch, you know, kind of over the shoulder watching this guy animate. It's kind of cool. But, gosh, you know, his screen resolution just isn't quite where it ought to be. So, I'm going to go elsewhere. I'm not going to watch. Yeah, maybe. That's a possibility, I guess. I know, I'm being a little bit snarky just for fun. But, no, I don't even have the ability to stream in 4K. I'm pretty darn sure. I mean, my screens are actually only HD, so at best it would be HD. It is true that we're scaled to 1280 by 720. And to tell you the truth, the dirty little secret here is that that's actually the resolution of my show. The actual show is created at 1280 by 720 and ultimately for distribution purposes will be scaled up. Surprise, surprise. And in fact, that's actually true today still of some anime. Now, more and more of it's actually full HD, of course. But not all. Not all. Turns out it doesn't matter that much. Especially if what you find is that when you look at your final rendered content, that it actually looks a little bit more pleasing to the eye if it's blurred slightly, which is commonly the case, especially with anime. Lots of anime looks like it was slightly blurred. Well, you get the same effect by just up-resing from 1280 to 1920. When you up-res it about 30%, you get the net result of... How did we wind up with this color? Oh dear. Oh my. Sorry about that. Yeah, when you up-res it, it just... I mean, essentially, actually, a lot of people don't realize this. They think that you can retain sharpness and resolution if you work large and then down-res. And you can if you sharpen, obviously. But the truth of the matter is, what many people do not understand, because they don't understand resolution, is that if you up-res or down-res, you lose fidelity. Because if these are your pixels, then when you up-res, well, let's keep this simple. 1 pixel. If you up-res it, then this 1 pixel has to be mapped into all of these pixels. So, and then there's a different color pixel on the other side of it. And there's got to be some way of averaging between the values of these pixels and the value of these pixels that are on the other side of it. So that's what happens when you scale up. But when you scale down, you actually have the same situation. So I've got 9 pixels here that are all, let's say, the same color, and then it's a different color out here. Well, you have the same thing. What you're doing is you're taking these 9 pixels, which may not all be the same color, and they have to be averaged down to 1 color to fill in this 1 pixel. And then, you know, the same across the board. So it doesn't really matter what you're doing in terms of changing resolution. You're always introducing blur. The question isn't whether you're introducing some degradation in your imagery. That's never the question. The question is, does it matter? Do people see, notice, care? Now, in the case of live streaming, obviously, Interactive DNA has noticed and cares. So, yeah, that's legit. I probably should turn this back on so I can sort of see what the heck I'm doing. Yeah. Keep it loose, baby. Keep it loose. So, who knows? It might actually turn out that I would have more people watching if I was in full HD. And I'm pretty sure I have checked my settings here, but I'm pretty sure I am down-resed to 1280 by 720. Video. Yes. Yep, the scaled resolution is 1280 by 720. Obviously, somebody on a phone wouldn't notice or care about that, but most people watching something like this, I should think, would not be on a phone. So, and again, by the way, that speaks to what I was saying about resolution. Actually, the idea of streaming at 4K is a bit silly because in the sense that the number of people that are out there that are watching on a 4K screen is vanishingly small. Like, that's a super tiny number. I mean, that's the realities of the marketplace. Literally, almost nobody's watching a computer screen at 4K. There are some, but very few. Which means that if I was streaming at 4K, if you're on a regular HD screen, guess what's actually happening? It's being scaled back down to full HD. And so you gain nothing for the 4K resolution unless the algorithm that's doing the conversion back down to HD is doing a really good job. So, and what it's going to essentially do is probably, it's going to downscale it by a factor of essentially 4 pixels down to 1. And then it's probably going to apply some sort of really gentle, unsharp masking to kick up the contrast at the high contrast edges. So where slightly lighter colors meet slightly darker colors, we actually kick up the contrast right on the edge, and that allows you not to have the artifacting associated with sharpening but at the same time, you're able to make it look and feel sharper. Quite useful. Okay, so we've got his hands. Let's go ahead and... It really does seem kind of dumb to put his hands in the same layer. So we'll just call this hands. And then we will insert a key. Let's see here. Looks like this one, they just moved, really. Yeah, pretty much. And then they close. So really there's just 2 drawings here. So we'll put a key here as well. And this one will just be animated. So he's saying his suggestion was streaming in 4K from a 1080p canvas. That I really don't understand. Why would you want to introduce blurring by up-resing, which would then only have to definitely be re-blurred and resharpened when it's down-resed again? What's the rationale there? I'm not really sure I'm understanding the sense in that. That sounds like it's coming from the paradigm that says high resolution is always better, when I just explained why that really doesn't make any sense at all. Because you lose resolution down-resing just as much as you do up-resing. Well, it's probably not fair to say just as much, but you definitely lose resolution. So the most accurate would be a pixel for pixel, unless you're talking about the MPEG compression, the MPEG-4 compression. It could be that by basically taking every pixel and saying, well, let's multiply it into a grid of 4 pixels. Let's do that. Okay, so we're going to take one pixel that's black or red or whatever, and we're going to turn it into 4 pixels. So we're still at HD, it's just everything's bigger because it's, instead of being 1 pixel, it's 4. So that's your starting point. Okay, so then the question is, what are you going to do with that data? It could be that the way the MP4 compression, you're getting into discrete cosine transforms, and you're getting into not really wavelet compression, because that's really more of like a JPEG 2000 type thing, but you're getting into fairly complex. Discrete cosine transform compression is within a single frame, okay, as opposed to all the different ways you can compress video that utilizes redundancy from frame to frame over time, right? And Interactive DNA weighed in with this idea, but now I've asked some questions and Interactive DNA has disappeared as well. So I guess I won't find out what his perspective was. I assume it's a he. I could be wrong, obviously. That's probably okay. We'll hit the X key. Now we're going to just zip right in here. So my point was that it could be that there are aspects of MPEG-4 compression that do benefit from up-resing first and then re-resing back down. Could be. I don't discount that possibility, actually. It's a little suspect. Normally you're going to get the best visuals when you have a 1-to-1 pixel ratio between your source and your destination. Just because there is no blurring that has to occur. There's no resizing. So 1-to-1 is preferred. Now, I'm not doing 1-to-1. I'm taking an HD screen and actually down-resing it to 1280 by 720. Now, the reason I'm doing that is probably stupid. So this is where Interactive DNA is probably correct. Hey, Darren. In that, now that I have 100, whatever the speed is, it's like the fastest internet you can get, pretty much. Probably, I really don't need to be down-resing anymore. I probably could be sending a full HD canvas out there to YouTube and it would look just fine. And I wouldn't have any issues with bandwidth, right? So for that reason, I don't have any computational issues. I mean, Now, people actually have varying opinions, though, about the about using the hardware-based NVIDIA GPU compression on OBS versus using CPU. Obviously, if you use CPU, you're going to use up CPU cycles compressing video. But it has been noted that the actual visual quality of the CPU compressed video is actually a little better than the NVIDIA compressed. The advantage you get with NVIDIA's GPU is that all of the video compression is offloaded to your GPU and doesn't affect your overall computer performance, which is of course CPU based. So there's that to consider. There is that to consider. Stuff to think about. But yeah, I probably actually, to Interactive DNA's point, I probably should stop down-resing to broadcast HD. There's really no reason now that I've upgraded my internet a couple months back. I was getting frequent dropouts here on YouTube before I did that upgrade, and I haven't had any up. I think since I upgraded my internet, I think that there has been literally one time when there was a a brief disconnect. I better solo this layer and see what I've got in terms of, yeah, close shapes. Might have a little problem right there, friends. So sorry about the sniffing. I sneezed, and by gum, I actually think it might be more allergies than like a cold or something, or COVID, because I've actually had the sniffles for a month. I didn't really realize that till a couple days ago, or maybe it was yesterday. I was kind of doing my daily journaling thing, and I realized that I had noted that I was a bit sniffly, like at the beginning of January. I'm like, okay, this seems to be something that might be sticking around, so I wonder if we need to look at maybe the ductwork or something, you know. So anyway, sorry for the sniffling in everybody's ear. Okay, so concept is pretty good. What's missing, of course, I'm going to solo this layer. What's missing is, of course, the additional fingerage. And now I'm taking the calculated risk of just drawing directly without any guide. And since this is going by pretty fast, okay, let's go ahead and clean this up real quick. Filter, colors, color to alpha. We're just going to keep doing the red thing. So, and now we just go to the next frame, hit Control F, Control F, Control F. Now what we do is we go back here, we hit Control M to raise up the curves, and we're going to do the cleanup operation, which is in fact a clamping of the alpha. You can see what happens. So we're taking, see all that noise that's still there? We could actually see how well this really works, come to think of it, by doing it twice. So now if I hit Control M and look at it, the question is how much of that noise is actually still there? Look at that. See, now that's, I find that disturbing. And that's a Krita thing. So when you clamp the alpha to the point where you literally, there's like, I mean, it's at zero. It's as close to zero as you can get. Right? Let's do it here. Like that's as clamped as it gets. Is the data associated with that alpha channel still there? And it is. Look at that. Wow. I think that's an oversight, and I've thought that for a long time. But that's okay to a degree. Let's go ahead and do this 3 times more. So Control F, Control F, Control F. So now the question is, does it matter? And the answer is, it doesn't matter if it doesn't bugger up the fill operations. So here's F key, and look, it filled great. So it's the fill operations are not being corrupted by that sort of latent residue alpha information. Therefore, even though it's a little strange, it doesn't actually create a problem. It used to. It used to create a problem all the time in Krita, where if you did a cleanup operation like that, the fill operations just simply wouldn't work. They would, because your lines would get blocked by data that you can't see, right? So, yeah, the Me6 bot, Darren, I tell you, it's just, for me, it's the quintessential thing that you hope wouldn't happen, that happened. You know, which is this bot has gone rogue. Because it's, even though I literally went through and meticulously disabled, there were actually two things about ME6 that I found a little concerning. One was that I changed the settings from my laptop, and when I came to Discord, even refreshing the page, doing a hard refresh of the Discord page, on this computer, the settings weren't changed. So I found that disturbing, because it shouldn't be computer specific. It should be Discord account specific. Number two, I went through and meticulously disabled every single permission for ME6 rather than taking the time to go through and figure out how to actually do a full-blown uninstall. And having done that, disabled it, reload everything, confirm it's disabled, yada, yada, yada. And then what happens? The very next thing that gets posted gets followed up by a congratulations, you're at level 2. Oh man, you were a loser just 5 minutes ago, but since you posted here, now you're a winner. You used to be a complete loser, but now you're a winner. And you know why you're a winner? Because we say so. I mean, isn't that the underlying mentality there? Basically, like you're so socially bankrupt and bereft of any kind of friends or relationships or anything that you need a freaking bot to give you a pat on the back. It's like, oh my God, is this what we've come to? So yeah, a bit of a rant, but I think it's funny. Pathetic, but funny. Okay, blind guy, B key. Yeah, I'm like re-entertaining myself now again, just going through it all. Well, it's like this gets back to my sense of humor that I was talking about the other day, because probably some people wouldn't get it, right? People wouldn't necessarily get my sense of humor. What am I talking about? Well, you listen to the jingle. When I start my live stream, think about what the lyrics to the jingle are actually saying. If you've got no life and you've got nowhere to go, then come here. So I do try to make fun of myself a bit. Not take myself too seriously. If you're a complete loser, then this is the YouTube channel for you. Oh boy. I do find that kind of funny. Alright, keep going here. We'll just kind of do the ink work. Now that's a little bit thicky poo on the eyebrows. Thicky poo, I say. Now, one thing I could do, by the way, is let's go to I guess because I already drew some black lines, I'll use color to alpha. Normally I would just use the curves, but if I do color to alpha here, but make it not quite as strong, like that just allowed me to turn the volume, if you will, of the sketch lines down, just so they're not quite as intrusive while I'm trying to do the ink work. So I hope you understand. So anyway, yeah, it just makes everything a little easier to see. But I do like this way of working. I don't know why. It's a bizarre conceit, the idea of saying, well, I want to sort of keep everything in one layer for some reason. There's not really a great reason to do that. In fact, actually, I should say this for everyone else's benefit who's here. If you're in this sort of debate that I've introduced between keeping things to one layer versus using multiple layers, the best policy is this. Keep everything on separate layers and then judiciously bake down as you go is really the best way to work. It prevents you from having to backpedal and figure out how to get colors, like areas of color out, separated or whatever. If you look at Ed Tadeo's channel, when he does ink and paint, he actually tends to put every single color on its own layer. So for some people with Krita, that could become a bit punitive performance-wise, I would think. But that's how Ed rolls. He keeps everything separate. So. And Ed does great work, so there's no question that he's got some stuff going on. All right, and now we should be down to this drawing, which is going to basically repeat with a little bit of animation. So we're getting close to the point where we're going to be able to color this thing, and I probably won't get to that here on the live stream. And I have to say I reserve the right to do it offline because... No joke, guys, no matter how hard I try, it really is the case that I'm way more productive when I'm not live streaming. I really am. Just the talking tends to cause me to both make mistakes on the one hand and then just move slower on the other. So I've been tending to do a little bit more work in the evening when y'all aren't watching. Boom. That stunk. Let me do it in the other direction. Of course, I could turn the stabilizer on. Stabilizers work pretty well. I hit the Q key, and this is set to stabilizer. Actually, weighted is kind of interesting. It's more like Blender's real-time stabilizer. Now, this is not doing much. I need to go like 200 pixels. So it lags behind a little more. And then if I lift up my stylus, you see it does finish the line for you, which is quite good. That's really what you want. But gives you just a little bit more control over your lines. One thing I have noticed, though, I'm noticing right now, which is totally problematic, is that you're getting this light area at the beginning of the stroke, and I'm pressing pretty hard, so that really should not be happening. So I'm going to go back to the standard stabilizer. That's usually what I've used over the last year or whatever. Yeah. I mean, it lags behind, but I think the regular stabilizer works better, personally, than the weighted stabilizer. With Blender, one thing I did notice with Blender, for those of you who are keeping score, if you use weighted stabilizing or real-time stabilizing in Blender, then you see a little widget that looks like this, like that. So when you're dragging your mouse across the screen, you see this little trail behind it that's like a widget that shows you what the stabilizer is doing. When you do that, so you're drawing in the Blender grease pencil, and you press Shift, and when you press Shift, the stabilizer automatically comes on. Okay. Notice that when you do that, oh come on! All right, stop everything. This is what I'm saying. I'm live streaming, and all of a sudden I'm making stupid mistakes. Okay, I'm hitting the B key. All right. I got two colors, and now they're both the same. So black, red, black. Okay, now I'm back on track. So with the Blender grease pencil, I probably should show this. If I remember correctly, when you're drawing with the Blender grease pencil and you're using stabilizing, if you lift your finger off the Shift key before you lift up the stylus, it will finish the line for you. If you're drawing with the stabilizer and you lift the stylus, like you finish here, and you lift the stylus and then release the Shift key, it will not finish the line. So what you do is you're drawing and you hit Shift, and then the stabilizer kicks in, and then you get to here, but the line hasn't finished because the stabilizer widget is still back here. And you take your finger off of Shift, and it finishes the line. So just a little tip for you Blender people out there. Because with the grease pencil, the real-time stabilizer is quite useful. Definitely. Definitely. Okay, stop. I see what just happened. I'm in erase mode.
I'm so sorry. I did not mean to be in erase mode. It must have been a slip of the tongue, or a slip of the finger, as the case may be.
Okay, that is stupid. Probably more like that. That's like way too big. That's stupid looking. Okay, let's stop everything and actually erase everything. Erase everything. So that I can hit the X key, B key, Alt Q to turn the stabilizer back off, and now I really need to get this anatomy more correct. Okay. Yeah, that's like way better. And then the beard should actually be visible. We're not looking up that steeply at this guy. Okay, cool. So this will be just a move or an animation of the drawing. And then he does have some lip sync going on. Tiny Salad. It was you, Tiny Salad. I referenced your okay, now I'm going to have another brain fart. What was it I mentioned at the beginning of the live stream today that was, or earlier I should say, that was something you had said the other day. Well, you see what I'm saying, you guys? I'm live streaming, and I just have all these brain farts. I'm just not as sharp. I'm sharp about whatever I'm talking about, but I'm not sharp about the work as much. I'm just saying. Well, I just hit the 2-hour mark, so probably should be signing off here shortly. Boom. Well, let's see. If we go here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take, well, we need to put his hat in there. Let's put his hat in there. And then I'm going to animate these 3 frames, and then I'm going to quit. Okay, so meaning I'm going to grab this and drag it to here. And so now that's wrong. I need to hit the animate tool, and I guess I'll anchor it on his neck. I guess we'll go with that. Okay. And I'm going to keep following that control drag to here. Yep. And then this is going to be, again, a control drag. Now, I'm going to actually have to do this again, by the way, because, well, obviously, once it's colored, you're going to have to do the same thing again. But let me see here. Okay, we got some staging issues that are going to have to be addressed. So let's clean this up first. Filter, colors, color to alpha, and let's really do it here. Let's do this right. Boom. Okay, so there's that. Now let's just go back and hit Control F and clean up each of these. Okay. And we probably should turn our... Okay, yeah. And so this whole guy is really kind of positioned stupidly. But not really. What we actually need to do, let's save our work. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a quick fix here, folks. Okay, so here in the monkey bod, we got these 2 frames, which we don't need both of them. Okay, we could always add that little tiny bit of secondary animation later. So let's take the monkey and move him back. And we'll get him a little closer onto the rule of thirds anyway. So really, something like this is not terrible. And if you're really addicted to the idea of monkey animating a little bit, then why don't we just do this? Let's just kind of pop him out a bit. Okay? Yeah. Okay, so then what we're going to do is take his hands, and on the hands, we're just going to add a transform mask. We're going to literally cheat. We add a transform mask, and then I'm going to do a slight shrinkage here, and then move them down like this. Okay, and then here, I think we're going to have to apply this. So let's flatten the layer, Control-Shift-E. And then this one actually needs to be a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to smack it right over top of Monkey's hands. Yeah, there we go. And then he says, "Thank you, my little friend." Alright, so now we're going to have to actually think about his sleeves. Yeah, there's a fair amount still left to be done here to get this punched up properly, because we really need some indication of his arms and sleeves there. So that's that. I am going to quit. Alright, I'm going to do a quick look on the... Sometimes the tiny sailor may not always be enough. Definitely. You remove the level settings on your MeBot. I did it when setting it up. I know. I did remove the level settings. I mean, I'll go back and double check it, but like I said, it was, you know, it's like I thought I did that. So, yeah. None of this stuff is meant for me. So tiny sailor could not combine multiple solids and make one big. Absolutely, you could. Absolutely. Just get 3 of the dollar salads, and it may turn out that they're bigger than the $3 salad. Stranger things have happened. Okay, so with that, I am signing off. And it was Monkey Business Continued. Absolutely. Thank you, Amar, for that insightful comment. Anybody who's dying to know what's been done, mostly it's ink today. So Monkey comes up, finds the coin, disappears, bounces over to the old man, offers him the coin. Old man says, "Thank you, little friend." So I gotta say, it's, you know, this is working. This shot, this sequence is working. And it definitely adds a slight, let's call it, it makes a slight ethical statement which counteracts some of the other things that have happened in the story. And I like the fact that Monkey served that purpose. So that's it. I'm done. Laters. You guys have a great... Oh, you're trying to get my attention. I know how often he skips chunks of conversation. I want him to know that he can turn off that feature he doesn't care about, but likes to rant about. Well, okay. If I go to the BlendedPlanet Discord right now on my other screen, and I go to BlendedPlanet, server settings, roles, there's MEE6. I'm looking at its roles. Okay. Everything's turned off. I look at permissions. Literally every single permission is turned off, including advanced, administrator. Okay, so everything about permissions is disabled. So if it is in fact the case that you can literally disable every single permission for MEE6, but yet it still has capabilities related to its details, then I will plead ignorance at this point, in the sense that I need to do a deeper dive on MEE6 to understand how it works. The idea that every single possible permission could be disabled and yet it still is posting to the server is baffling to me. So before I go, I'll just ask this question. Are you guys aware of that possibility? As far as you can tell, are you able to disable literally every possible permission of a bot, and yet it still is, well, let's use the Discord terminology, carrying out a role on your server? Okay, so Amar is saying that you have to do the thing that to me is like ASAP. It's like as stupid as possible. The stupidest possible idea is that you've got a piece of software that you can disable it and say everything that you could possibly do you're not allowed to do. But because you didn't actually disable it from the server completely, it's still going to keep doing it. I mean, that so roundly disqualifies MEE6 from ever being used for anything for me ever again that it's not even even something to think about. Yeah, utterly and completely ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. So I'm looking at the roles, and I'm looking at, it does seem to me another thing that I'm finding a little disappointing, but I may not be looking deeply enough, is that the whole idea of installing a bot on your server and then not having a very obvious, very upfront, obvious, like in your face way to completely say, oh, I've had buyer's remorse, I regret this, I don't like this bot, kill it completely right now, just completely uninstall it with no sign of anything ever having been present in the first place. For that to not be front and center and obvious is, I find, like, that's a big turnoff for me. But so if you guys are, I'm happy to accept your help. I'm looking at my server overview and I'm looking at the server roles. When I look at the role, the only role that's quote unquote installed is MEE6. If I don't go into the MEE6 settings, but instead look at the, I can go to edit and I can go to more. So if I look at edit, that goes to the permissions. So that just takes me where I would have been if I would have just clicked on MEE6. And if I go to more, it's view server as role, which is not helpful in this case. So what that means is that editing MEE6 is the only option that I can see, and both in terms of what it displays and what its permissions are. Again, call me an idiot, but I find it baffling that I've literally X'd out every single possible thing. Like, nothing is enabled, and yet it still posts on the channel. From the ME website and not your Discord. Yeah, so basically, this is the way I see that. It may be a snarky or cynical view, but this is the way I view it. This is kind of like Microsoft 101. This is the basic definition of evil in software. Is let's make something sound as wonderful as possible and then make it enormously difficult to uninstall. I'm not saying it is enormously. It doesn't have any roles at all, Darren. It's nothing. Everything's turned off. Right? So what we're saying is, so it's basically like this. What this smacks of for me is this. The idea is, it's so obnoxious and so difficult and clunky and just stupid that you're probably going to go, oh, screw it. Just let it run. I mean, that's basically what that's the way it feels to me. Is like, that's what they're hoping you'll do. Is go, oh my God, it's so difficult to get rid of that I might as well just live with it. Sounds like you still have a turn on in Discord that is not turned off. Well, what would that turn on be? Are you saying there's something that's enabled in Discord that has absolutely nothing to do with MEE6? Look, I'm happy to show you guys. Every single role, everything that MEE6 can do is disabled. Completely disabled. So what else is there? What else is there? As I said. Okay, how do I get to that? So sending messages is still enabled. Okay. So I'm looking at the permissions. Send messages and threads, allow send messages, text channel permissions. They're all disabled, and yet it's still doing it. What am I missing here? What is under display? Okay, so we're in the MEE6 role, right? Let's make sure we're on the same page. We're looking at the MEE6 role, correct? Yes or no? Quick as you can. Yes or no? Yes? And then under the role, we're looking at what's under display, or am I in the wrong place? Quick. So I look under display. I see. Okay, so yeah, that's basically, it's basically a tab level. Okay. So we have a role color, and we have a role name. And down at the bottom, we have the only thing that's actually an enabled or disenabled option. Display role members separately from online members and allow anyone to @mention this role. Both of those are disabled. There's 3 tabs. The display tab. Yep, I'm on the display tab. So we have a role name. We have a role color. Potentially we have an icon, which I'm not using. And then we have display role members separately from online members, and we have allow anyone to mention this role. That's what we have under display. So, I mean, I hope we're not going to find out that, yeah, this is like the literally as stupid as it gets kind of thing, where the way you actually finally get rid of MEE6 is to give it, is like to take away its name. Like erase its name, and now we won't see it anymore. Or something like that. Nope, that doesn't work anyway. If you delete the role name, it just actually sticks it back in for you. So you remove the role from the bot user. Just remove the bot user. Okay, so now please understand, Darren, I don't have any context here. Who is the bot user? It doesn't make sense to me. Like, to me, I'd be going, well, I'm the bot user because I installed it on my server, right? At the application level on the website. Yeah, that is probably the case. And that is absolutely a wonderful reason to do whatever I have to do to get rid of it and never, ever, ever deal with it again. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I'll call it good. It's for now. I'll come back to it because it's really just, you know, does it really matter on a Discord server that has like, you know, 7 people that ever go there kind of thing. In the future, it might matter. Right now, it probably doesn't matter that much. So I'll get to it. But yeah, MEE6 is on my poopy poo list. But, you know, that's me. So anyway, that's it. I'm going to go. And as you guys know, there will be more later.